All right, we're live, bro.
All right.
All right.
Good.
Hey, everyone, I have the honor and privilege of introducing a friend of mine and life business coach, helping entrepreneurs and real estate professionals take it to the next level and not just working their asses off, enjoying life at the same time. Good friend of mine, Chris Goodman. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And I'm excited to be here and help out however I can today.
Man, well, like I said, this is candid. You and me sitting down, having an old fashioned. Fortunately, I don't have an old fashioned right now, but basically it's us sitting down, having a candid conversation about the industry, talking about real estate, the do's, the don'ts, what's coming up, what's next, how can people be successful, but also live a life worth living and having a great time doing it.
Exactly. Well, I love
So,
it.
So let's talk about you for a second. Just so life business coach, helping entrepreneurs. Law school dropout, which one thing I did not know about you. I did not know. That was surprising.
Right?
Yeah, I did not know about that. And then within 3 years, went off to sell $21 million in real estate. Your first 3 years going off to be rookie of the year and just crushing it. And so we're going to dive into a lot about that. But I think the most rewarding thing, the biggest accolade you can have is you just got married this last weekend.
I did. Yeah, it's official. So
it's official. You are off the market. Lindsay's like, no more. You're done.
Right? Yeah, we said some high school sweethearts might have cried themselves to sleep this weekend.
I love it. Well, so tell me what's not in your bio. Who's Chris? Who's Chris at work? Who's Chris not at work?
Well, yeah, what's not in my bio is that I'm a constant learner. And so I'm always digging into new things. Like over the past couple of months, I've started to study Ayurveda and meditation and things like that because it still is a very new part of study and just all different kinds of philosophies related to it. And so my background is very like logical up to real estate, right? Like political science and law in undergrad, and then worked for a law firm for 5 years and started law school while I was there, and all that kind of like adds up and makes sense, right? But then as I got into real estate and started to really get bit by the entrepreneurial bug, I started to learn anywhere and everywhere. And I think that's actually part of what made me a good agent back then, was just being willing to learn and apply lessons from odd industries or seemingly unrelated things into my daily life and business. And so I usually bring this really weird bag of tricks to the table because I might be, 1 minute talking about Shakespeare, 1 minute talking about Ayurveda, and then talking about, Warren Buffett's philosophy on investing. So
yeah. Well, I think honestly that brings a lot to the table, especially for those in real estate. I have heard so many people that have come from other industries or careers to get into real estate be massively successful because they took what they learned in other industries and brought it to the table.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I did. The contract and the law portion of real estate came very easily because that was my background. And then learning about people, on the other hand, that's something they don't teach you in law school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's just some of the things that, for fun, we travel a lot. We travel up to about 25% of the year around the world and just getting into trouble. We just had a destination wedding at the Biltmore. So, I don't sit still very well most of the time. And yet we just moved to the beach. We moved from Indiana, the Louisville, Kentucky, Southern Indiana area to Manhattan Beach in California earlier this year as well. So now we're starting to come, down from all the craziness of the year between moving across the country, 2,000 miles away, getting married, and building 2 businesses, 3 now on top of it. So
yeah, no, dude, massive success, dude. Congratulations.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
So let's dive into your first 3 years in real estate. Like looking back on your first day as an agent, going in and going, great, I'm gonna get in this. What was your mindset like? What was your vision of, great, I'm gonna go and leave this career in law and jump into real estate? What was that like?
Well, I knew I was miserable, right? Back in the corporate world. I was in a windowless office on the 29th floor of a law firm and just all day long grinding it out. And if you're familiar, with how lawyers bill time, you bill in 6-minute increments. So my day was tracking time, plugging that into a computer and going on to the next thing, and nothing ever really getting resolved. A lot of these big, litigation cases drag out for 10 years or longer. So I wasn't feeling any sense of, progress or even satisfaction in my work. And so that's what I was like, I want to find something transactional that's fun and yet has a finish line.
Mm-hmm.
And a buddy of mine wanted to go to lunch with a real estate agent that sold me my house. Great agent. I said, yeah, let's go see. He was thinking about getting his license. And as we're sitting there talking, my friend just totally bows out of the conversation because he realized he's got 2 little girls to take care of and he couldn't do a full commission role. It was too much risk for him. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, dude, tell me more. This sounds
great.
Yeah, so it offered all the things that I wanted: freedom, guidance and mentorship, and the ability to create my own schedule, my own results, right? And to own my own business. So when I got started, I started looking at the top agents in the market, and the guy we went to lunch with was the top agent. So he was building a team at the time, and he said, look, I need somebody who's smart enough to help me build this team, and we have to sell a bunch of real estate. I said, sounds like fun. Let's go. So I signed up with him. I think even before I had my license officially, I was like, yeah, we're going to work together. And then I put in my 2 weeks notice to the law firm, and he calls me that afternoon. And he goes, hey, man, he was at a local brokerage at the time. And he said, hey, man, I know you just put in your 2 weeks, but what would you think if we went to a different company? And I was like, well, yeah, I don't really have an option. Let's go. So he moved his business from the local brokerage to Keller Williams. And I joined on there, and we took off. And from the beginning, I knew I didn't want to be involved in sales the whole time. I wanted to get my feet wet there, but then eventually build the team and own the business, right? So from the very beginning, I was thinking like an owner, not just a sales agent. That's where a lot of agents go sideways. Tell
me more about that. I want to stop you on that because that's such a great point. Let's dive into that. So I 100% agree. Most agents don't look at it as a business. They look at it strictly as transactional. Let me just do one transaction as a transaction. And they don't look at it from a business standpoint. Oh, there's accounting, there's financials, there's budgets, there's marketing, there's a whole holistic overview of running a business. So tell me more about that. Like what?
I also want to give them some grace that they don't know what they don't know. Right?
Correct.
I mean, I didn't even, as educated as I was, I didn't really think about real estate, especially residential real estate, as a viable career option, especially one that I could make more money in than the law, right? Like it's real estate agents traditionally do a terrible job of broadcasting to the world what we actually do, right? And how we actually do, right? And so when we say that agents don't understand that they need to run it like a business, they just don't know what they don't know. And luckily I had a lot of background in business litigation and other types of businesses. So I knew what I was getting into, but I think people just don't understand that there's so much more opportunity as an owner, and to begin that route early on instead of delaying and saying, well, once I make $1 million in sales, I'll do X, or once I make 10 million in sales, then I'll start thinking about building a team. So from the very beginning, it was like, where can I find leverage, right? What can I leverage? How can I delegate? From the very beginning, working to figure out what is my core skill set and how do I stay parked right there? And I have to hand it to my mentor. His name's Todd Paxton. He gave me a series of books, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, The One Thing, and a couple other kind of, personal growth books. And it created immediately this sense of, I'm going to own my role in my business and own my results. And that's where a lot of agents feel victimized by the market, feel victimized by leads, or, they chase their tail for a long time. I didn't want to do that.
So the agent essentially has the ultimate responsibility and ownership of learning how to run a business. Do you think there's some responsibility on the brokers of not really showing them how to run a business either?
Well, it depends on the broker's model. If they're very hands off and they're offering a limited opportunity to go into business with them, and they don't take much on the commission for that reason, then I understand that. But if you're at a place that says they're offering the best brokerage to work with, I think that means that the broker needs to expose you to as much opportunity, including opportunities to learn and grow your business, as possible.
No, totally. And so you'd find brokerages taking high splits and not providing the value. And and brokerages taking hardly anything but providing a ton of value. And so I was listening to Gary Vee, and I saw a few quotes from Gary Vee, and he had, I think he had an interview with Kevin Copeland and Fred Weaver, who are awesome friends. And he said something around the guard of real estate professionals of this day and age need to learn how to add value, or they were going to be out of business. Like, they need to understand how to add value to the consumer. And if they plan on staying in business and building a big business. And what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that the real estate industry is doing a good enough job adding value to consumers?
No, I don't. And I'll tell you why. Because I used to, up until early this year, I trained rooms of agents, 30 to 75 agents at a time, in how to enroll a buyer or a seller in your process, educate them, set expectations, help them, in other words, add value. And most of the time, these agents had never been told this. Some of these folks working in the industry for 30 years, never having the opportunity to learn that there's an actual process to follow to make your life easier, freer, simpler, more productive. And just my experience in that regionally, understanding that they just, again, they don't know what they don't know. They're out there, they're doing the best they can, and we're not doing a good enough job of saying there is a smarter way to do this. So yeah, I think there's a lot of work to still be done there. I always use the example when I'm teaching those courses that if I go into a dentist office, I know exactly what to expect, right? Like whether it's here in Manhattan Beach or whether it's in Alaska or South Florida, it doesn't matter. I know exactly what's going to happen, right? I'm going to go up to the little podium thing, sign in, and I know that process because that industry has systematized it for years. Agents, on the other hand, have done the exact opposite. And they've never formalized that, hey, if you're a buyer, you need to come into the office and let's make sure we get you set up beforehand. Hey, if you're a seller, here's the best way to sell your house and the process and what it looks like. So I think collectively we have 1.2 million agents in NAR now, something like that. There's 1.2 million opportunities to reset the paradigm and say, let's use a process that actually works for the agent and adds massive value to the buyer and the seller.
So you bring up a really good point with regard to the dentist, right? We could go to dentists, to doctors, whatnot, and a lot of the professions that have a higher barrier of entry seem to have a lot more things systematized. Do you think that because real estate has such a low barrier of entry that you need to pass a state test and basically not commit a crime and be 18 years old that you can get your license? I mean, and I'm not saying that in a negative context. I'm saying that because there's a low barrier of entry, can that jeopardize the standard for everyone across the board?
Well, I can tell you that I know lawyers that, went through a much more rigorous set of standards and testing and all kinds of things who I would never trust to work with or work for or any of that, just as much as there are agents or anything else with a low bar of entry. So I always put this in the context of the bar for entry to real estate is low and the bar for success is extremely high. So we're going to see the invisible hand correct the market. Every time we have a strong market, we see an influx of agents and an influx of people, running around like crazy trying to get a license. And then the market shifts and it absorbs out, most of those people who are not top performers. So I would put it in the frame of, if you want to be a top performer, then yeah, you've got to have very high standards for yourself, your business, your clients, who you bring on your team. That's just a natural thing. I don't think we can look back though and blame the entire, we'll call it the system, right? Of how we create an agent, because I think all agents are undoubtedly created equally. They are just not going to perform equally. And
100%.
Right. And buyers and sellers and investors don't always know that they have a voice there. They can interview agents and choose one based on how they perform. So I know that was a long-winded answer there, but
no, that was perfect. No, okay. and that's the kind of point I wanted to get to, because I've heard that limiting belief or that squawk before of there's such a low barrier of entry to get into real estate. You don't need to be super qualified, whether it's from people in the industry or consumers. And I really wanted to hit home on that because I do believe that you and I could have got into real estate at the same time. We could have both both massively successful, and we could have had two different systems that worked great for us. There's not one right way of doing it, but it has to be something that the agent takes time to look at and go, great, I need to systematize this if I want to scale. I need to hire people to help me scale. I need to learn how to do X, Y, Z, so I can continue to grow. And I think that's missing a lot from real estate. You'd be surprised how many brokers and agents I talk to that automatically assume that, oh, agents won't do that. Agents won't do that. Agents won't do that. And I'm like, okay, yeah. So I'm like, you are running your company and you're already putting it in your head that your agents won't do this or learn this or take the time to implement this. You're not even giving them the opportunity to do that. And so you're setting the limiting belief on them. And I'm like, stop doing that.
It is so maddening. And man, I'm right there with you, because I can't tell you how many times I pitched this class to a brokerage or a franchise, and they said, there's no way our agents will take an entire day to come sit in a room and learn how to work with a buyer or work with the seller. I'm like,
that's like their freaking job, dude.
Yeah, I was like, does that serve you to believe that? Like, does that actually help you in life and business right here?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's not unique to real estate. And I mean, look, I got into life coaching. There's no threshold to get into life coaching. And so you see, you can't throw a rock without hitting a coach right now, right? Mm-hmm. The bar for success is extremely high, super low bar to entry, no bar to entry.
Yeah.
Right? And yet you're going to see people get corrected out of the business. So yeah, I think there is a broader conversation though about the broker level and how much responsibility they have for the success of their agents if their heart's in the right place, right?
Well, and you're exactly right, is whether the broker believes that people will attend your class or not, you have to present the opportunity and let them figure it out. If you had one person show up to the class, great. Maybe agents don't want to come to the class, and somebody has to look at their business and go, is this sellable? But brokers have the immediate reaction because, the RAS is going off and, oh, I tried this once before. It didn't work. It sucked. Everybody gave me shit about it. It was horrible. And now I'm not having any more classes in here that's a day long. Right. And it's like, it's not true. And I think that the industry is shooting ourselves in the foot by limiting the resources and education that people are providing. And on top of that, I think you made a Facebook post a while ago that I commented on. You and I were going back and forth on it because you said there's basically a zero barrier of entry to get in as a coach. And I said, yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't remember the post, but it was all about, my comment from what I could recall was about, if you go to hire a coach and you're exploring a coach, ask them questions as much as you're asking them questions. Right? Because to find out if they're a fit, right? What results have you done? What results can you help me with? Because you may want the results that you may help me get the results I want, but you may not do it in the fashion that I may want to feel comfortable with the way my business model works. And then it may not work out. I'm like, oh, my coach sucked. It is my coach's fault. It didn't work out, right? I mean, we've all heard that, but I think that more agents and brokers and people in industry, you can throw a rock and hit so many coaches. But they need to do a good enough job asking the right questions to go, is this the right coach for me? And there are some coaches out there that make a bad name for other coaches because they just hire anybody.
Yeah.
Oh, and then they do a shit job. And then agents are like, I don't like coaching because it doesn't work.
Well, this is the classic, right? Because and I should be clear, in my real estate career, I was a buyer's agent, then a lead buyer's agent, and then a director of sales. So I leaned, almost all of my sales are on the buyer side. And I can't tell you how many times I heard, oh, buyers are liars. So I just don't work with buyers. They're just too much drama and da-da-da. Oh, it takes too long to convert a buyer, or too long to turn a buyer deal. And I started doing research in our office, and it was taking people sometimes 100 hours of work from cradle to grave for a buyer. On our team, we were at closer to 10 hours.
As it should be.
Right? And that's the thing. And so I think people need to look at, are you doing it the best way that you know how in your limited experience, or the best way it can be done? Because if you're tracking, and I know this is why we're on this conversation, because a lot of people listening want to learn and grow to be their best. Are you modeling after the best? And that's not to say like wiping your personality and your flair and your style from it, yet following something that says, look, we've got a few of the core mechanics figured out. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The fundamentals, right? You got to
And
have the fundamentals.
And the fundamentals in 2019 moving into 2020 have changed dramatically. Right? And a lot of people are still using a 1999 approach. I just taught a course. It was probably March this year. I think we had 50 people in the room, and I asked how many people are paperless, and 2 people raised their hand. And I said, how many people are completely paper? And about 10 people still raised their hand in 2019. And no judgment there. I don't want you guys to think that I'm like hating on you, but there again, are you doing it the best way you know how, or the best way it can be done? We can be so much more efficient. And that's I think one of the things that's going to classically challenge the real estate industry is herding cats, right? Just allowing people to have their own business and not overregulate it, and yet showing them there are better ways to do this business.
Well, and to that point too, so many agents and brokers have relied so much on technology to do what their value add to the consumer is. And they're wondering or they're worried if technology and the Zillow is going to come in and take away your business. And I'm like, everyone's allowing the technology to take over your value. You use technology to support and leverage your business. You don't allow it to do your job for you.
And you couldn't be more spot on. The agents that I've coached that have massive success focus first on that customer service and spiral out from there. Like, how do we add leverage that helps our customer service? Not how do we add more leverage to get more leads, right?
Correct. Yeah, and I think that's the biggest problem is so many agents, and I taught a class a few months ago, and it was so many agents are marketing. Here's my website. Here's this. Go here. Here's my clickbait. Go enter your first name, your last name, your email address if you want to look at these homes. And it's like, you need to realize that people can get that for free by going to Zillow. They can get that for free going anywhere else and don't feel like they have to enter their information in certain places. And I was going, okay, how many of you market your negotiation skills? How many of you market testimonials from your clients that show, great, I help my client avoid court or avoid losing their EMD because I understood the arbitration and mediation clause. I understood liquidated damages. Like, that's value to your client, right? Your value is, my average for buyers is 98% of list price. My average for listings is 101% of list price. Like, that's value, not the website. And people are not realizing this.
They are just not fast enough, right? Because it takes, in my experience, 2 years for an agent to really become a solid agent and see enough to have enough war stories to really get it, right? And that's the thing, is we want to compress that time and that stress to not force you to learn the hard way and fail your way forward. You're still going to have some failures with a coach or, taking some of these great classes that we're talking about. It's not going to alleviate all the pain. However, if we can get you there faster with less stress and ultimately save you more money that you can invest back into your business, then why wouldn't you take advantage of these things?
Totally. And so the next 5 years, agents that have been in the business for decades or agents just getting in the business right now, brokers that are listening that are running companies with hundreds, if not thousands of agents, what is your message to them over the next 5 years? What should they be focused on?
I think the culture in America anyway is moving toward a almost like tribalism, a community focus, because it's so easy to sterilize everything now. I'm in California, so it costs a lot to open a restaurant anywhere in the South Bay. And the restaurants that are succeeding are building relationships in the community, and they're driving traffic to them organically. The agents who are succeeding at a really high level have put roots in deep with the community, and they have a customer service backbone to that product or service that they're working on, right? And I see this just all around in different aspects of the economy, that as millennials can choose anything from anywhere at any time, who would they want to work with is going to be the question. Who do they want to work with? And if you can be the person who shows them that not only am I an expert and not only do I have all the data and the software, things that, are attractive to the online buyer or seller, but what sets you apart is going to be your roots in that community. I'm talking mainly residential, right? And so it's a long-winded way to say that I still think it's going to boil back down to things, fundamentals, essentials, like you said earlier, customer service, having a presence in the community, actually caring and having conversations with these people and not just considering them leads that you can churn and burn. And I'll tell you that like one of my first coaching clients sold 302 units in his first year, building a team, doing this, focusing on the community, finding ways to bridge the gaps between undereducated buyers, undereducated investors, and offering classes to them. And I think the real change makers of the next 10 years are going to obviously use technology, but not at the expense of the human relationship and the conversation there.
100%. Man, well said. And my previous guest, Tyler Smith, CEO of SkySlope, who I had on last time, he touted the same thing. It's like because I knew him when he was selling real estate, and he did the exact same thing. He was involved in the community. He was engaged with people, and he was all about customer service, right? I mean, even still to this day, I think even as CEO of a multi-million-dollar tech company, he still writes handwritten note cards to thank people that have actually met with him.
Oh, that's awesome.
He still just writes handwritten note cards. I see the value in somebody just appreciating the fact that somebody took the time to write a handwritten note card, and whatnot. So I just think those little things, as the industry gets more tech heavy, it's still going to be the note card. It's still going to be the value, the person to person connection. And I definitely see that as an agent's success for the long run. And I still think from a broker's perspective, I think from a broker's perspective, the only way that a brokerage continues to stay in business is they recruit more agents or produce more. Like that's really it. And they need to do the exact same thing as their agents are doing with their clients. They need to find ways to add more value to their agents. How can I add more value? And by saying, oh, they're not going to go to that class is not one way to help, right?
Yeah, right.
It's getting these things in front of them.
And doesn't get to you where you need to be.
Yeah. Well, and at the same time, too, I can understand how brokers could be a little gun shy about it because they probably had these people that weren't vetted out correctly, that came in to teach a class and got horrible reviews. Or didn't get the results that they were hoping for. And they're like, okay, well, anybody who wants to come in and speak now sucks. And it's like, no, it's not the case, right? It's not the case.
Or, we bought lunch 3 times and it didn't work, so we're not going to buy it a 4th time. I mean, that's what I think a lot of brokers need to take some or give some grace there, that especially if you have a larger brokerage. I mean, out here in South Bay, a small brokerage is 250 agents.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind, right?
Doing $1 billion in production.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm from a small town in Indiana where there were 600 to 700 agents in our entire MLS. So, moving into the LA area, yeah, it's a lot different. But there are fundamentals that do not change, and it's how people think and it's how businesses operate, right? Yeah. And I think we do have a duty, a responsibility to our agents, if we're at the broker level, to help them, right, and support them. But then again, I also think that each agent that really wants to thrive in real estate has a responsibility to themselves to figure out, what is my identity in this huge landscape of real estate? Mm-hmm. And if you're not doing anything to get clear on that identity, it's going to be very easy to chase your tail and do the same things and say things like buyers are liars and real estate's going to make me die early from a heart attack. And
well, you're absolutely right. And I think one of the things that one of the pitfalls I see agents fall into early on in my career, and I kind of started going down that path, but I corrected pretty quickly, was I'd be in my office and I would say, ooh, that's working for that person. I'm going to go do that. And I did it for 2 or 3 weeks and it didn't work. I'm like, oh, that doesn't work. That whatever. I don't know what his, and I go, okay, she's doing this. I'm going to go try this. And I got so wrapped up in trying so many different things that once I stopped and found my own identity, I was like, cool. I know. And I built my business on 4 pillars, 4 simple pillars. And they were all relationship based.
Each one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I did it the hard way for a long time. I was the first person in the office. I was checking the MLS with my coffee first thing out of bed in the morning, and last person to leave the office or turn my phone off. And that was about a year of that before I thought, okay, there are people smarter than me doing this in better ways. And while you can get 3 years of experience in 1 year that way, do you really want to spend a long time pursuing your goals with your hair on fire? It's not a way to live. And because the nature of real estate as a profession bleeds into your personal life so much, you might as well be a tech startup CEO. You know anything about that? Right. You can't shut it off. I mean, and it's also because everybody around you is a potential paycheck or, team member or something. So that brain is just always running in the business direction. So I think, that's where, and actually that's part of how I got into coaching, was figuring out how to have a life in addition to a successful business, because there are better ways than, most real estate agents.
Well, we're coming to an end. So let's talk about that for a brief second. And then I want you to share with everyone who's watching, how they can find you on Instagram, on Facebook, email, however you want to be contacted. But share with me that, like, okay, your coaching company, and what does it entail? Like, how can people contact you? Like, obviously it's about growing your business, but also living a life at the same time. So in a nutshell, I was a director of sales on a $1 million team, and training, hiring, recruiting, firing, doing the whole 9 yards, and collecting a lot of certifications in behavior and leadership and, all these things. And it got to a point where I realized that real estate was just a vehicle for that experience, that I loved the teaching aspect, the coaching aspect. A lot of people hear coaching and they think accountability. Mm-hmm. That's not what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about coaching, I mean actually inspiring people to be themselves and go conquer life the way they want to. So my coaching started to develop a whole flavor of freedom and ownership and entrepreneurialism. And I eventually outgrew real estate because I realized this is every business owner. Mm-hmm. Every business owner has to deal with their mindset, their fears, the challenges of clients and leads and getting contracts and da-da-da-da-da. But what everything boils down to is that mindset piece. So when I started my coaching company, I said, I'm going to be heavy on probably 80 to 90% mindset, and then 10 to 20% on business. Mm-hmm. I've watched and suffered through this myself. Building a business on top of a shaky life is a horrible way to exist. Yeah.
Right? I went through a really terrible divorce while I was right at the height of my career. The week I found out I was this marriage was going to end, I went out and sold 6 houses. That's how busy I was at the time, and yet it was not a way to live. Mm-hmm. So again, I said that was going to be in a nutshell.
That was good.
But at the end of the day, I've focused very heavily on the whole person and how do we get everything you want in your life and your business, because we know it's possible, and we just have to unlock a few pieces in you to go make it happen. So the easiest way to catch me is on Instagram. My handle is @GoodmanCoaching, and my website is goodmancoachinginc.com. But honestly, especially with our wedding, my Instagram is where I'm going to be hanging out, posting wedding pictures and having some fun with that for a few weeks and just soaking that up for right now. So if you want to catch me, that's the best place.
Soak it up, dude. Soak it up, man. I'm going to go check out the photos now.
Yeah, man. I mean, we got married at the Biltmore out in Asheville, North Carolina. And it was just epic. I'm still exhausted because we just ran from Wednesday to now. So it's a blast, and I'm so grateful for it. And real estate is part of the reason we were able to do the things that we're doing. So very grateful.
That's awesome, man. Well, hey, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I know you're busy, and enjoy the honeymoon. But let's catch up again soon. Let's talk real estate. Let's talk business. Let's talk tech. Let's talk everything, and let's talk life.
Got it, man.
So I'll be down in LA soon. We'll grab some drinks.
Sounds great. All right. Thanks,
man. Thanks, man. Bye.